Welcome to the Civic Pulse, the 30th episode with Congressman David Bonior and Brian Brady. It's been about a month since we talked because Congressman Bonior has spent a few weeks in the Ukraine and he's come back to tell us all about it. So delighted. How are you doing, David? Have you rested and recovered?
I have recovered. We've been back now for over a week. So, yeah, I've gotten my clock back in order. So I'm okay, I think.
Not an easy trip. You're not as young as you used to be, so that trip takes a little more
No,
out of you, right?
no, really. This one took a lot out of me because we had a lot to see, people to talk to, and and so we had to cram some of it in, and that meant we had to take overnight trains. So for 3 nights, we were on the train all night. We had a little sleeping compartment, but it's pretty hard to sleep on those trains. But anyway, we did that, and I was pretty tired at the end of it. Yeah,
Yeah.
but I'm
Well,
raring to go right now.
oh, that's good. Well, and a lot's happened in the world since then that we'll tackle in upcoming shows. My beloved city of Chicago is under federal siege. There is some hope in the Middle East there with the ceasefire. But those will be our episodes 31 and 32. Today we're going to go deep on Ukraine. And just before we dive into the individual pieces of the story, what's your general impression of the state of the war and the spirits of the people? I know when you and I were there a year ago,
Mhm.
they were pretty down. Downbeat's too strong of a word, but it was a hard time a year ago.
Well, it was a big difference from the time 2 years ago when I was there in
Yeah.
'93. So, excuse me, 2023. Uh, yeah, they were down. I mean, psychologically, they had a very good uh, gains in getting back their lands in '92 and '93. But that didn't happen in '94. And
20,
so
20, 23, 24. Yeah.
I'm getting my centuries mixed up. I really probably do need more sleep from the trip. I think I'm not back yet. But anyway, in 24, they weren't feeling as confident because they didn't see the gains that they had previously made. And but I think on this trip it was interesting. I think they've resolved the fact they've come to the conclusion that I'm talking about generalizing a nation, which is very stupid and hard to do. But I'm going to
Yeah.
go for it anyway. There's a feeling that this is going to take longer than anybody had hoped or thought it would take, and so that's troublesome to them. But they're resolved to stay in the fight and to win it, and they think they can win it, and I think they can win it. I think they can get to where they want to be, get as much back as they can, and get a peace, and then have the alliance security of the United States and Europe. Europe standing really tall behind them. Ever since Trump had that confrontation with Zelensky in the White House with his vice president, uh, that things have changed dramatically. I mean, for Ukraine, in the sense that the Europeans just came around. They realized, well, this is more serious than they had thought. The Russians are going after different places. They're now sending drones and missiles into Poland. So they feel the pressure from Putin, and they know that they've got to get their budgets up, their military budgets up to 5% from 2%, if they've even gotten there. Some of them haven't, and so that is helping Ukraine in an immense way. And they've rallied around the president Zelensky. When Zelensky came here to meet with Trump, he had the premier of president of France. He had the prime minister of England with him there on that trip. Finland was represented at his side. I mean, they came to be at his side with Trump, which was really quite an amazing thing. So I think in Trump's tune has changed a little bit. Now, how long is that going to last? Well, we don't know with him. It can change daily, but I think he really was disgusted with Putin, and I think that's probably a real positive, and I might hold too. So, which is good.
It's fascinating that embarrassing display by Vance and Trump. Let's not forget Vance being so pathetic in that session,
Yeah.
had almost a boomerang effect on European leaders that they,
Oh,
I mean,
definitely. Yeah, they were appalled by it, and they, saw his retreat, Trump's retreat from Ukraine, as a serious threat to them.
mhm.
So there's been a lot of work going on to try to patch that up between the alliance, the NATO alliance, and the United States, and they've made some progress in getting it patched up. But it's with the President Trump, as I said, I'll say it again, you just don't know where he's going to be. So you've got to look for more stable ground, and I think they found it. And I think it's not only good for Ukraine, but Ukraine is good for the rest of Europe. Ukraine's got the biggest army
Yeah.
of any of these countries right now. It's got the most experience, and its people are very educated, smart people, and tough. And the word resilience is the title of my new piece that I'm doing. And they're very resilient folks. They can adjust and bend and develop to the point where they need to be competitive with Russia. And I think that you're seeing all that. The fact that the Ukrainians are less dependent upon others for weapons now. They've moved that number up of self-reliance on weapons from 20%. They were only 20% when this war started. Now it's over 50%. And they're producing new things every day. In the medical area, the tragedy of the war is the loss of lives and the loss of limbs, but that's also provided opportunities for the Ukrainians to take a big step in the medical arena and move forward for their people and for their allies. So it's not a simple yes and no or black and white. There's a lot of subtleties here, and they're to be played out.
The geopolitical, I'm treading in waters I'm not that
Yeah.
versed in, but it seems like geopolitically, if you're European and especially if you're Eastern European and bordering Russia, that if the U.S. is pulling back, your need for Ukraine is even goes from here to like a
Right.
10. Like you need the European NATO needs Ukraine as much as Ukraine needs European NATO.
Exactly. That's where we are now.
Yeah, it's ironic, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
it's ironic because I think there was a point early on after the full invasion in 22 where actually they had a chance to get it all back, and some things didn't happen, and we are where we are now, and militarily, I think pretty much a stalemate. But psychologically, it's a huge hit on Ukraine and more so on Russia now as well. I mean, the people are suffering from a lot of stress. The kids in the schools, the kids, the teachers, just being in a war atmosphere. If you're living in one of these cities like Lviv or Kiev or Odessa, the big cities, they're getting hit on a regular basis in the evening, and that means if you've got children there, you got to take them to the shelter.
mhm.
In the middle of the night, you do that 2 or 3 times a week, and your energy disappears because you're not getting sleep. So there's all of those factors, and that's why we need to provide them with the air cover that they need, and that means Patriot missiles, which are the most effective. And we need to get some more of them to them. And I just saw the Israelis are providing them with the Patriot battery, and some of the other European countries as well. So that'll be helpful.
My wife's, as you know, my wife's from Lviv, and she
Right.
said a friend of hers there's been some massive missile attacks all over
Yeah.
the country, right? As Putin tries to press. And one of her friends' families, it's the third year of the war. You think after you hear the sirens, you'd start to just forget about it. But they luckily got up out of their bed on the siren. And the moment they got to the hallway, the missile hit their
Wow.
bedroom.
Wow.
And so
Well, there you
it's
go. Yeah, you got to take those sirens really seriously. I mean, we were awakened several
Mhm.
times during the trip, where we had to scamper down into the basements of these facilities that we were staying at, and were more secure. And just what you got to do, but it's destabilizing and it's
Yeah.
psychologically damaging and hurtful.
So that's a good segue to the purpose of your trip too,
Right.
which
Yeah.
it was you've done a lot at home for troops and dealing with PTSD and emotional trauma and psychological trauma and physical traumas. And this trip was really about supporting the troops in Ukraine. Tell us a little bit about who you went with, what were your main destinations and goals, and then
Okay. Yeah, I went with uh, a fellow that you went with a couple a year and a half ago, and that's Dr. Eric Trupin, who's a
great guy.
psychiatrist, and we were working on a program in Kiev for an outfit, an NGO called Save Ukraine, that works with children who have been stolen and abducted by Putin, and then they take them, send them to a camp, and then they foster them out or give them have them being adopted by other Russian families. About 20,000 children. So we've been working with them on how best to deal with the question of these children reentering now once they're rescued. They're home again. It's a tough thing to go through. So we had this grant all set up through ASID. And they
Mhm.
have 6 psychologists that work with this group plus other war traumatized people at Save Ukraine. And we had it all worked out. And then Trump pulled the rug out of AID, basically got rid of it. And all that went, plus the psychologists went. So
Yeah.
we're there to try to restore that. And then in addition to that, we worked with 5 other uh, organizations that I've worked with now for 3-4 years in Ukraine that are doing great work. I know it. I see it when I go, and I know the people who are running it. And so we raised about $110,000 for these 6 organizations, and we gave out little grants to these organizations for projects. And we went to see what they were doing with some of it. And for instance, in Lviv, that the Ukrainian Catholic University, which is a kind of a huge, it's not huge, it's a very small school, but it's a
Yeah.
huge engine,
Influential. Yeah.
yeah, influential, and it's an engine in getting things done because of the people that run it are spectacular over there. And
Yeah.
they put in a whole new program for the university based upon the fact that they're at war. So they're gearing a lot of their efforts at veterans. And I'll give you a couple of examples. They have something called a peer-to-peer program. That means we've learned this from Vietnam, that when soldiers interact with other soldiers, they can get them to
Mhm.
do things that other people can't because they trust them and they don't
Yes.
necessarily trust the government. So they've got this peer-to-peer program where Ukrainian veterans will go out and work with other veterans on psychological readjustment programs to get them involved in it. And it's worked when we did it in the United States. Well, our veterans who came back from Vietnam, they didn't want to work with the VA. They didn't trust them, didn't trust the government. They felt
Yep.
abandoned. So what we ended up doing is I put in legislation. It became law that we would establish about 100 outreach centers around the country where they could come. These used to just be basically storefronts, and
Mhm.
they became centers and hubs for veterans. And then they
And
eventually
they
became
built.
other things that they did in there besides psychological readjustment. They were job counseling, family counseling, all kinds of things that would help somebody integrate back into the civilian population. So
Such a
we
good
did that.
idea. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and so there's a couple of things that we did at UKU, Ukrainian Catholic University. They did
I
that.
call Uku's kind of like the Notre Dame of Ukraine. Is how I call it, right? It has
Yeah,
a little, doesn't no football team, but
yeah, it's a great school. It's a great
yeah.
school. Wonderful people there, and eminent scholars teaching there as well. But in addition to the peer-to-peer group, They have training for priests now on how to deal with their parishioners who have this
Mhm.
stress. Everyone has this stress because the war is going on there. So
Yes.
if you're a parish priest, you want to know who to refer them to or how to help them, move forward. So they have that program's been in effect now for over a year, and they're training quite a few priests in that regard, and that's worked out well. They have an entrepreneurial program that they
Quick,
with
que-
Stanford
quick
University.
question.
Yeah.
Sorry, David. Quick question. How much of the country is Catholic in Ukraine? Because it seems like a really smart
Oh no,
strategy.
it's small. It's like 7%, I think. Yeah,
7%, but the church has
a big
uh,
influence.
a big
Yeah,
influence across the whole country. So when you're hitting that 7%,
right,
you're hitting folks across the country. Okay,
right.
sorry.
And the church is very broad-minded, and when it comes to its services, it takes care of whoever needs it. You
Yeah,
don't have to go onto the church to get the services, and so they're a small percentage of the population, but they do good things. They have something in Europe called Caritas, which is the charitable arm of the Catholic Church, and they're in all the European countries, and they do a great job in Ukraine. They have programs in about 30 different places throughout Ukraine, so they can reach a lot of people. And so we're
okay.
looking for organizations that have that kind of reach that can get to people. And Caritas is one. And so we did a program with them. They weren't really heavy into aiding veterans. They were more into family stuff with
Hmm.
kids primarily. But I think we've moved them a little bit. I hope we were part of that. And we got them a little grant, and they're going to do a family psychological readjustment for people who have war trauma or who
Oh,
have
that's great.
post-traumatic stress. So that program actually starts next month in November in a little place called Shosta, which is about north of Lviv, about 50 miles. And the nuns in that monastery there did a fabulous job when the war started, full invasion in February 22. They did a great job in taking in people and caring for them those first few months when you had a big exodus of people, the biggest since the end of World War II.
Yeah,
So they've got some good infrastructure to work with in that little project, and we're very pleased that we were able to help in that. And then another one, as I was getting to real quickly, I'll get to that and get off, is we did a project uh, um, uh, working with the people in Uku on a project they have with Stanford University, getting veterans, giving them the know-how to actually become entrepreneurs and have jobs. So that program is ongoing as well over at the university. And they have a great mental health institute there. They have a very eminent Dr. Romachuk, who is one of the great people who in mental health reform in the world. He's at the university, and so they're doing really good mental health work over there.
that's fabulous. I just had to, it's just for our listeners, I had to figure out the religious makeup of Ukraine. And quick question: what percent is Eastern Orthodox, David?
It's it's the largest is Orthodox, and the Orthodox Church is has divisions within its own self.
It's
So yeah, so it's kind of divided, and the evangelical churches, as we know them here in our country, they're there in Ukraine, and then they're
Mhm.
they're getting more and more people involved because they're very active in recruiting, and they have a pretty good message for people. So it's a mixture. And then there are people that are non-believers, uh, but you see a lot of religion in Ukraine. You go around the churches. It just they need it now too. I mean,
Yeah.
it's good to have that spiritual peace in your country.
I was just looking at the numbers. It's about 4 million Greek Catholics, which they report to the Pope. Although the priests
Yeah,
can marry if they marry before they are ordained. It's a unique Catholic
Right,
setup there.
right, right. The priest
Uh,
can, if you're interested in becoming a bishop, that's not an option for you there. But
yeah.
if you're a priest, the way it works is that you get married before and then you become the priest.
And you have some old school 1% are Latin Catholics. They're still doing the Latin Mass, and the
Yeah,
Ruthenian
yeah, yeah.
and Ruthenian Catholics. They had, I mean, that was,
Yeah.
it's an interesting mix there in Ukraine.
Uh,
Yeah. Sorry, I took you off track. So you in Lviv, you're at Uku, and then you also went to Ivano-Frankivsk, which is
yeah, that's about it's a couple of hours away from Lviv. It's a big city. It's about 400,000, and it's at the foothills of the Carpathian Mountains, and which
beautiful. Yeah.
borders Romania and a few other places, Moldova. So we went to there because I've been working with people in a veterans hub there, and they put together a great program. We visited it, and all the things they're doing, jobs, they're doing psychological counseling, they're doing all kinds of work with veterans at this hub. And then one of the things they did when we gave them that small grant that I talked about, they used it on a facility, they're just starting, up in the foothills of the Carpathians as a retreat center for
Wow.
this very work, where psychologists will come in with vets and their families, and the families will go there and they stay there and they'll have sessions and work with them to try to work their way out of. Because I should tell people this right off. I should have began with this. If you have war trauma and you don't address it, it's going to come back and haunt you. And it's something called post-traumatic stress, and it's called a disorder right now. So it's PTSD,
Yeah.
post-traumatic stress disorder. And if it's not dealt with, you're going to have a rough life because it will always be there like a ghost haunting you time after time after time. And it leads to addictive behaviors and drugs, alcohol, physical violence of other family members. And it's just, we know that from veterans of previous wars who have not had help. But we also know the other good side of knowing is the fact that if you do get counseling and the right kind of therapy, you can overcome this and you have the tools to deal with it. And it makes a world of difference in a person's life and in their family life. So we're trying to get as much of that done as possible. And the president of Ukraine, his wife, Olenska Zelensky, she's been the head of doing the mental health reform as a person, people can look up to, and she's very well liked and respected. So they're making really nice gains there. So in Ivano-Frankivsk, we gave them a grant so they could get this center going, and they're doing really well with that. They have a permanent psychologist up there, and he works with the families. And we met actually with some parents who had lost their child in the war, their son,
Mhm.
and at one of these sessions, and it was quite moving. Um, but anyway, so
That's a
that, and then we got on the train and went to overnight, 11 hours to Odessa. And before we got to Odessa, I think the train stopped because there was a lot of activity in the air,
Mhm.
bombs and drones and things. And then we proceeded in, and we met with the 39th Brigade, which is basically a brigade of Army veterans and Army people. And they've just taken this issue of working with those veterans and their families and the families of people who have lost loved ones to the war, and
Mhm.
doing all the things that I've just talked about, jobs, psychological counseling, everything. Uh, it's really fabulous to see. One of the things we're trying to do with all of this is get veterans in the United States to come and partner with veterans in Ukraine. So there were four of us on the trip, in addition to three of us, in addition to Dr. Trupin, who was a psychiatrist who went with us, who are veterans. We had a guy from Chicago, actually, John John, and Ron, and then Jack, my friend Jack, a Vietnam veteran. The other two were younger. They had great careers in the military. One was a officer for many years in the Green Berets. The other, Ron, was a combat leader and he served 20 years in the Marine Corps. And he's now has his PhD. I mean, he teaches at Rutgers part time, and he's really a committed guy. Both of these guys, John and Ron, worked in the White House after their military service. They were so good. They worked as security positions, National Security Council, with both Bush and Obama, mostly with Obama. So they've had military, civilian experience, combat experience. They're perfect, and they were just wonderful to have. And we're working with them to see if we get some younger people, other than Vietnam veterans are older guys now. We're at the 80 mark, so we need people that are at the 40 and 50 mark to take over. And so we're working with them to try to partner U.S. veterans with Ukrainian veterans. And every place we went to, we met with veterans and talked just about that issue of partnering. So we're putting that piece together, and hopefully we'll have it in place in short time.
Yeah, healing is not a quick fix, right? So this is something that you have to set up for decades on after the war ends, right?
Right.
So from Odessa, which is southern Ukraine, right?
Right. It's on the Black Sea.
So you went from Lviv to the Ivano-Frankivsk, the southwest of the country there, then over to the central south in Odessa, which is not too far from the line of conflict. So were you a little nervous being there?
No, not really. It's a big city and it operates and people go about their business. But you're conscious of the fact that it's been a target. They've been hitting it like they've been hitting Kyiv recently. So you pay attention to when the sirens go off, you find yourself shelter. They're not telling you that because they just like to ring that bell. They want you safe and your family safe.
Did you get the scary app where you can see all the different?
Yeah, I still have it on my thing. I keep it on actually, so I can monitor what's happening in Ukraine, what kind of activity is going on in the air at night.
It's pretty scary just to sit there and watch the incoming. It's various types, but they have a few high-speed missiles that are a little different speed.
Hard to get out. Yeah, you got to get a Patriot battery system involved in that because they move at so lightning speed, and you don't have much time to get in a shelter.
So then you're in Odessa and you take another overnight train. What, 10 hours, 11 hours?
Yeah, it was about 9 or 10 to Kyiv from Odessa. Yeah.
Okay. And those must not have been too comfortable. Did you get any sleep on those trains?
Well, you get a little sleep, but you don't get good sleep, and they're rocking, and and then they stop every once in a while, and they keep going again, and it's.
And you're not alone. You're with a couple people too, right?
Well, I had a berth with Jack, and I were in the same berth, and Ron and John were in the same berth. So, and then we on the way on the way back from Kyiv all the way to Poland, we had four in a berth. So actually, it was kind of interesting. Jack and I were on the bottom bunks, and all of a sudden, we know we were going to get two more people in our berth. So one young woman comes in. She's just graduated from college, and she was a very nice lady. She took the top berth, and we had a nice conversation. And then a few minutes later, this other fella comes in, and then I started to talk with him, and I found out he was a priest, a Catholic priest, and he worked for Caritas.
Oh, no way!
Yeah, it was just ironic, coincidental. We were in the same building that day earlier that he was, so he had a pretty good position over there too. He was a very interesting fellow. So we We didn't get away from work. We kept
You
working
kept
through
on
it.
talking.
Yeah.
So you get to Kyiv, which is, to me, it reminds me of Chicago. It's just a big, bustling city with,
Yeah, 3 million people. Yeah.
yeah,
Beautiful, beautiful city.
beautiful city, and it's kind of spacious. Not like New York. That's why
Right.
I
Yeah.
choose Chicago,
Spread
right?
out. Spread out. Yeah.
Spread out. And who are the main people you spoke with in Kyiv?
Well, the Caritas people, as I
Mhm.
mentioned, and then we also met with people from Save Ukraine because we want to get those programs back on track.
Yeah.
So we did both of those. We spent days visiting their new center at Save Ukraine, which is a really nice facility they put together to take care of people. Uh, then we also had visited something called a place called Superhumans, and it's a place where they do prosthetics for people who have lost limbs. In Ukraine military, 86,000 limbs have been lost.
Oh my
Legs,
God.
legs and hands and arms. And those were really that meeting we had one in Lviv and then we had one in Kiev. They were pretty you know, emotional meetings because what they're doing, this organization, Superhumans, is the latest in prosthetics and getting people equipped with new arms, new feet, new legs, and they just do amazing work. And we watched it, how they do it from top to finish, how they mold the prosthetics, measure them. After that, put them on. We saw people exercising with them soon after they got them. We got to talk
Wow.
to people. We talked to one fellow who was quite emotional. Uh, he was a tall guy, about 6'2". He had a family, and he lost his. He was all these people were in military service and in combat, basically. He lost a arm and a hand and a foot, I believe. And we chatted with him, and he mentioned to us that he was a little nervous about the fact that he lost his arm and his hand. And when he met with his 14-year-old daughter, uh, and talked to her about all of this, uh, she was concerned, but she was lovingly concerned for him. And
Mhm.
then when he was leaving, she said to him, Dad, she said, don't worry about uh, holding hands. I says, we'll hold hands. She said, we'll hold hands with your new arm and your new
Arm.
hand in an electric, the newest thing, hand, prosthetic hand. We'll hold hands like that. So it was really kind
Oh,
of, yeah. And then an interesting after that, we left the facility and we're out in the parking lot. And about 20 minutes later, we see this guy, a good athletic looking guy. He's about 6'2".
yeah.
He's on a bicycle and he's racing around the parking lot going somewhere. And I looked at him and he nodded to me and then he took off.
That's great. That's
Yeah.
great. It gets back to how important it is to, I know you're fundraising for some of those first aid packs, because if you can get to people quickly and treat them, right, and put tourniquets
Yeah.
on,
Yeah. Yeah.
people can live through those from some horrible injuries.
Yeah. They can.
So give us a little bit of a wrap in terms of one light question and one heavy question for you.
Sure.
The light question is just sort of the go the gossip in Ukraine. Like what, there's always a little bit of political gossip and personality gossip, and how is we view Zelensky one way, but then Ukrainians view him sometimes differently. So give us a little bit of the light political gossip, and then let's also end on like how can we lean in and help? What are the causes that we could still support to
Yeah.
help?
Well, I'll just do that first and then we can talk about gossip. I mean, if you really want to help, one of the things we're doing is provide, we collect this money that we did. And within about 3, 4 months, we'll put together about $110,000. We do it through a NGO called the Ukraine
Platform?
Charitable Platform.
Yeah.
So the money goes there, and then it goes to Ukraine, to the programs that we're involved with. So we tell people what we're doing, so they can write the check to the platform. They can take a deduction here for doing it that way.
Yeah.
And so we're going to try to do some more of this work. The mental health piece is very significant. We need to keep working on that. And because, like, yeah, huge percentage of the population has huge stress problems. Um, so we
By the
want to.
way, in the banner, I put the address for the platform, and
Oh, you
if you,
got it. I see it. Nice. Very
yeah, if
good.
you send a check, put Bonior in the memo so that David can thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And not only thank you, but I know that it goes to the right program. So
Yes,
that
exactly.
would be very helpful. And the other thing we like to do is provide an opportunity for Ukrainian veterans and U.S. veterans to come together. So that may need some help in terms of transportation, particularly for Ukrainians who want to go there, and for maybe U.S. Veterans who might want to make the trip as well. At least help them defray some of the costs for it. Once they're in Ukraine, or if they come here to the U.S., uh, we can find ways to put them up and take care of them. But it's the transportation that's expensive.
That's a great idea. Yes, and so we'll all try to make a gift here, and then what's politically, where do you see Ukraine at internally?
Internally, well, there hasn't been any elections because they're at war, and it's
Yeah.
hard, and a lot of people have left the country, and so it's hard to run an election in that kind of a situation. But I think Zelensky's numbers and support has really gone up since the confrontation with Trump in the White House, Trump and the Vice President Vance. And so it's really gone up in Ukraine and particularly the rest of Europe. I mean, they've got an enormous amount of support now there, and they're not so reliant on us anymore. Of
Mhm.
course, they still want our support. Who wouldn't? But anyway, that I sensed when I was there, and I also sensed that the people are, they're in it. They know it's going to be a long, long haul, and they're going to lose a lot of other people. But the option is you just give up and lose your country. Well, they've had 1,000 years of being under the thumb of the Russians. That goes back all the way back 1,000 years ago
Mhm.
when they've been messing with Ukraine, uh, not letting them have any independence at all, just keeping their boot on them. And this is really major change in this attitude because in the last, I would say, 35, 40 years since they've become a state. And the younger people are much different than the older people. They're much more uh, progressive, I would say, and they're tough. They're tough. I mean, they went through two revolutions: the Orange Revolution in 204, 205, and then the Revolution of Dignity in 213 and 214, where 100 people were killed and massacred in the square in Kiev, 100 protesters. So they've been through a lot, and they've been through these wars, and they're tough, they're resilient, they're smart, and you'd want them as a friend and you want them as an ally. And I think
Right.
that's kind of the final thought I had on all this.
That's a good one to end on. I'll give a personal anecdote that my mother-in-law is 77, Ukrainian woman, grew up in the Soviet Union, and my wife is 53. But also in touch with the younger generation, her nieces and nephews. And you see that the younger generation is interested in building a new country and it
Yeah,
has an idealistic North Star. The older generation that lived under the Soviets, they had to fight to survive within a corrupt system for so long
yeah,
that hardened them. And so there's a level of cynicism uh,
a lot of cynicism. Yeah,
that's sometimes difficult to overcome. But that younger generation is on fire. And
We've got a
it's
lot of that
that's it.
problem here in the United States is cynicism.
We
And
do.
it's for some of it is for good reason, but too much of it is a death sentence for the country. So we've got to keep it in proper perspective.
I saw a quote today from Hannah Arendt. Someone put online that the purpose of flooding the zone with BS is not necessarily to get you to believe it, but to have people give up that you can find truth.
Right. That's
Right?
what Putin's counting on. They're counting on people giving up, getting
Yeah.
tired. They don't want to fight it anymore. And then one way to do that is to just have all this confusion.
But
And
yeah,
so,
I'm drawing inspiration from Ukraine. Chicago we're having abductions within a mile of my house, so left and right, and they're abducting 15-year-old citizens who have medical problems, no IDs.
yeah,
It's crazy here. So I suggest, a couple shows in the future. One, we look at ICE with some experts,
sure.
and then two, I think we have to talk about the ceasefire in Palestine there, right? And
Yeah.
see what the future holds there.
Yeah.
And three, this topic of cynicism, right? So I see a few. I don't think we'll wait another month to do a show, David. I think this
Okay.
we'll put them together a little bit back to back. There's a lot to talk about.
I'm ready. Yep.
Sounds
Yep.
good. Well, thanks for joining us, and David, thanks for
Thanks.
your work in
Yeah.
Ukraine.
Thanks for having me.
All right,
Nice to be with you.
you're a good guest on your own show. You're pretty solid.
I got the time. I get to talk.
Thanks. All right.